Might not be and I think that'd be the best.
People are watching you.
You guys are doing good.
It's 5,000 viewers.
That's the only way to see the slide.
Yeah, we can hear you. But just stay in the slow section. Microphone has to get just stay in this long right here. And then right there.
Like you can see him right here, where I'm standing.
Right there, yeah. And right there.
Morning, everybody. I won't be wandering today because apparently I have to stand here if I'm on YouTube Live. So if you watch this later, don't go back 15 minutes. Okay, thank you. All right, obviously this is a little weird, right? We're in a very different spots. I think those of us who were around during the flood kind of come back and compare things to the flood sometimes. And of course, this one has its own unique twist to it that makes it even, well, maybe challenging in a different way. So hello to everybody up there in the shelf too. Thanks for social distancing up there too. Quite a few folks up there. We used the analogy last fall of HRS. I actually think it was last spring about us flying a plane while we're building it. Yeah. If you could take that up a couple notches, that's what we're doing right now. So at the outset, it's nice to see you all, and I'll be in the same room with you. But as we work through this, of course, there's going to be questions, and a lot of them are really good and real. We'll do our best to answer them. The district office has asked us to set up a system where we can record all the questions and pass them on to them as needed. So if there are questions we can figure out here locally, we'll do that, but otherwise we'll move them on. So let's get started here. So first of all, we'll say thank you for the work that's coming. It will be trying and challenging and new. And this may not be what we want to hear right now, but it really could be an opportunity for us to kind of expand the way we work. In some ways, we're just maybe not doing it under the conditions we hope to have. But we'll say thank you to in advance for the work that's coming in front of us. The second piece is, of course, the most important thing right now is health and safety, right? So no matter what we do with school, no matter what happens with education in the next few weeks and months, as long as we're all safe and healthy, that's the biggest thing, right? And that includes our friends and our family too. So it's almost impossible to avoid all the information from the CDC and the North Dakota Department of Health, and that's probably the way it should be, but you can become consumed by it. So maybe this gives us a little bit of balance in our life, so we're not just constantly checking the latest updates. There's still just one case in North Dakota, and there is, just so you know. But I kind of look at it that way, that it's some normalcy. So I shared with a few people, I had a dream last night that it was graduation, and graduation had an Egyptian theme. And if you know me, I'm not a huge fan of themes, but I just loved it. It was great. Like, this is normal. Finally, we have something normal. Graduation, and there was a bunch of people walking around with ships and gold things on their heads, and I was happier than punch. That's what we were doing. No. Okay. I listened to, as things have changed so fast, but I was listening to the press conference from Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota on Sunday morning. Really, I think, if we're honest, some of what he said precipitated the change on Sunday night from Governor Burgum, whether he says it or not. But one line that he had in there, I think, was really good. It said, "Don't let perfection get in the way of good," because we're going to continue to assess and reevaluate what we're doing to make it better all the time. And we can't sort of be bogged down by, is this perfect, before we start to roll something out. As always, we want it to be as good as it can be. We want it to make sense. We want it to work for kids and be manageable for us too, but we're working in different times and under time pressure. So I would say 2 days ago, when we started to develop this slide deck, some of these questions maybe you didn't know the answers to them, but probably you do right now, but let's just review. Why are we at where we're at? Basically, we're at this place, not because there's a huge threat that's present in North Dakota today or in Grand Forks, but because we want to prevent that threat from moving into our community and into our school. So we're practicing all the things the CDC is advising to keep it that way, right? Social distancing, of course, is a big thing, and mostly to protect not just maybe us, but people more vulnerable than we are by us inadvertently spreading the virus. And of course, the big reason for that right now is to ease the burden on our healthcare systems, the staffing, the amount of testing that they have or do not have the capability to do right now, including supplies like ventilators, which you probably all know are in short supply right now. One of the big themes from the district office yesterday is that we are good consumers of information. We generally go to reliable sources to get our information, and we have a duty, not just as educators, but as members of the community, to make sure that the information we're sharing is factual, that it's coming from the right spot, and that we don't let fear overtake our lives, and so that we're doing irrational things that are based on misinformation. I think that makes sense for us. And so if we're going to do the right thing in terms of information and sharing it, we need to make sure we're always going back to those trusted places. Those are the CDC and the North Dakota Department of Health. The North Dakota Department of Health website is very robust, very timely, has great information for people. It's a good place to go to if you haven't gone there already. And really the next piece, of course, is you've probably heard this analogy as well. The whole, Mike, do you want to talk about this a little bit? Go ahead and grab a microphone there, please. If you haven't seen this, this is really why we're doing the things we're doing, even though we're not seeing so many cases in our.
Yeah, so as John said, it's just the healthcare system, the capacity, but not like the middle outbreak. In these cases, there. So that's shown. The objective is to use all the lines of the healthcare system, press down, and obviously schools play a very important role in that being a workplace for a large number of people.
Some of you science experts in the room probably can explain this better than I, but of course the measures we're taking right now, if you look at the timeline at the bottom, do extend the time that we deal with this to avoid that spike and to avoid overtaxing our healthcare system. That's sort of the trade-off in doing that to make sure we're able to manage it right now. Anybody want to add anything to that? Those of you up on the shelf, math is all around you in case you missed it. There you go. Okay, Dr. Brenner has asked us to share a message with you all this morning. So
I'll say this, the district office started planning about 3 o'clock something ago for a whole set of scenarios that changed to 7:30. So they pointed a ton of time into what we were going to do and how we were going to plan it, how that might look like. They had no idea that the governor of North Dakota was going to say, here's the plan. So that changed everything. They spent a lot of Sunday evening, probably early Monday morning planning for us to come in yesterday and figure out what we're going to do the next 2 days. So they have performed not only admirably, but it's under incredible circumstances.
First and foremost, thank you for being here today. I fully recognize the challenges you have This is an unprecedented time in the history of public education in North America. COVID-19 and all the restrictions associated with it are constantly changing and have created challenges for public education in North America. COVID-19 and all the restrictions associated with it are constantly changing and have created challenges. This message is to address our communications, but I'm sure it's factual information and not based on assumption. Because COVID-19 information is actually, it will be important to update you in a timely manner as new information emerges. You can expect communications by Blackboard, email, and through video messaging. Further communications and communication has been remarkable throughout this process, and she is a tremendous sense of gratitude. Here's how we help us with communications. We need to be the voice of calm, empathy. Your help in providing clarity and we certain opinions we fail to communicate with one voice. So please help us stay on point with accurate information. You know, we are all the professionals who know our ground well. We have made a decision to close schools based on information. How we respond to that will set us apart. We won't ask why, but we will create an educational pathway. We will provide resources for you so that a shift from classroom to appropriate instruction is less painful if that's what you're going to do. Principals will share and 3-12 education. We are looking for plans to educate students from distance, which is focused on the overall school. Whether we have students that have to release next Monday, March 23rd, remains to be seen, so we are forward prepared. Governor Wilker intends to audit school relations we do hope to hear sooner. Here's some of the information. One, everyone on the table should have on slide will be next for Monday, Tuesday, which is today. Should be paraprofessionals will be working with teachers on Monday, March 23rd. Even school is on session. There will be plenty of support roles for professionals. Twitter, if you can use banks or for someone else and implement some emergency, please do so. 4, custodians will continue with cleaning while students are. 5, if you plan to travel state by commercial transport, please follow along the code of this applies to all national. Finally, I came to school district 25 years ago because it was the land school district. This is where I teaching my let's put today's challenge into an opportunity and let all eyes be on us with feeling, creativity, collaboration, kindness, and problem solving. Our communities can help us, and I really want to thank you. I hope you grant.
Okay, so as of last Friday, of course, we were going to be in school all of this week. We started to just think on our own, individually as buildings. We had a principals meeting last Thursday where Catherine Gillette said to high school principals, time to start thinking about what you're going to do about sub shortages and how you might deliver education electronically. And that was really the gist of the message right there. And boy, things have moved fast since then. As we kind of relay what happened on Sunday and even yesterday. We planned for things yesterday and at the end of the day, a new recommendation come out about the number of people you can gather with. Made everything take another turn for us to try to figure out how we might work today a little bit too. So we'll continue to do that. So here we are. Some things to know about just normal operations before we get into the education part. So you probably have heard by now, if you've been paying attention to the news, that the child nutrition program will continue to offer meals to folks, to students. It's 18 and under, just in case anybody asks you. They will provide a meal to anybody 18 and under at a series of sites throughout the district. At this point, they're school sites. They may move to parks later on. I think that's still in the works. But as far as the school sites are concerned, Central is one. So people will be coming into the building, basically just right at the main entrance today, to grab not only lunch for today, but also a breakfast for tomorrow morning. Really trying to contain them into just that area of the building, and of course, have people there to make sure we're social distancing while they come into the building to grab those things. So that's quite an undertaking for child nutrition as well, that they've arranged. We are asked to consider all kinds of policies and procedures that we have, both those should kids return sometime soon or if they don't. So that's a lot of what is maybe outside of your purview, but no, that's sort of what leaders across the district are doing. For those of you who are parents of kids within the district, you got a message last night to respond to a poll about availability of connectivity at home, but also devices within your home. And that's really to figure out if we have to deliver education through a device, online, how many kids do not have those things, and how would we mediate that difference one way or another? Raise your hand if you got that message and respond, please. Am I wrong that they did not ask which school your kids go to? Did anybody see that? Even the elementary folks didn't see that anywhere. No. Okay. We're trying to figure out how they're going to know within each building how many devices need to go out. But we were wondering that too. But then, so you take my email. Do you know I have one at Central and one at Schrader? I don't know. It's a good question. Sean Allen said, I'm assuming just by collecting email addresses that's how you would know. We'll see. So when we talk about policies and procedures, one of them is if we're going to disseminate Chromebooks to students at Central, how would we do that? Keeping in mind all the recommendations from CDC about social distancing, all those things. So yesterday we had secretaries who were nice enough to say they would take on the charge of cleaning Chromebooks. So I think we went through 5 carts, is that right, yesterday? So we have, according to Amy Barch, the district office, our chief academic officer, we have enough devices to distribute to kids that need them. So we should be covered that way. The question is, how would we distribute them? Keep track of them, and then get them back, of course, too. And then really, as we're learning, we're planning all this, but we just don't know what's going to come down the pike. I wasn't sure if it's down the pipe or down the pike. It's been a little debate in my head, but I think it's pike. So what's coming down the pipe for us next? I'm just going to keep saying it until we get used to it. And we'll respond how we are. I think what we can do right now is this is the information we have, so let's plan the best we can with the information we have, knowing that we have to have a little bit of flex to it, because I think in our minds we think we know where this could go and what things could look like. Because as it stands today, the governor is saying we will be back in school on Monday. I wouldn't bet on that, but who knows? Any questions about anything we've just said so far? Matt? Yep, we're still working on that. We've seen a couple of providers say that they will offer free access within the home. I don't know how local they are. What were the 2 we saw yesterday? Yeah, Comcast and Spectra. Thank you. That was the other one. So it would be nice if you knew Mid-Continent was going to do something like that. But the ones that we had looked at said they will come into the home, set it up so that you would have connectivity for free. Data cap. The question is, if you have internet but you don't have wireless within your home, yeah, and I'm hoping that some of these providers, Mid-Continent, would step forward and make that part of what they would provide, but I have not think I have any insider information, but it's a good point. Megan, did you have a different question? Same question. Anybody else? Kylie Lowell. Sure. Yeah, that Kylie's question is, let's say, and I'm assuming the scenario is we're delivering online education and to our students, what is the responsibility of us to be within the building to do that, or could you work from home to stay with your kids if you have young kids at home? Do I have that right? Yeah. That's. So you don't want to work from home, you want some distance from those kids. I get it. Yeah. Are you wondering about another daycare option? Wait, I'm thinking there will be, and I can't speak to it because it hasn't been said, but the consideration is, what do we do with people in your situation who have kids at home? They can't leave home. They also struggle to work from home. I think, am I putting that the right way? Yeah, those are all considerations. Yeah, I don't have an answer, unfortunately, which you might hear me say a lot. Sean Allen.
I know
Right. Megan Allen, everybody. Megan Allen can babysit. Yeah. And I think there are a number of kids who are going to be bored out of their minds soon, who would be, I just don't know how we organize and keep track of that and line people up, but that is a possibility. The charge in Minnesota was for schools to figure out how they might use some of their staff members, paraprofessionals, to do childcare in some way. I wouldn't be surprised if the governor of North Dakota asks us to figure out a system like that as well. When and where and how that happens, when you can't have more than 10 people in the room, I'm not sure. Okay. The task in front of us is a little bit nebulous. So we'll do the best we can to give you enough clarity that you have some direction, but at the same time, you know where we're going. And really, we're going to break it down into two parts. Because the second part is an assumption that you would also be here or have to work with what we'll say in front of you next week if kids are not in the building. So that's sort of hanging out there. Really, we need to figure out a couple things. Number one, how do we end quarter three? Right? So there's a survey at the end of this slide deck that I shared with you that we would like you as a department to go in there and you can figure out what your thoughts are on how we end quarter three. Because of course, there's all kinds of options. Do we end it a week ago? Do we give kids a couple of days of online access, assuming we get to that point, to be able to clean up things? Really, we just want to know what you think. You're the ones closest to the kids and the grades. You have far better ideas of what would make sense in your world, and we'll try to put that together to come up with an answer. So Red River is filling out the same survey, so we'll take a look at those results and try to make a determination on what we do. Some of your thoughts today aren't just about that survey, but also just thinking in your head, what do I feel like kids need to do to end what was covered in quarter three? Okay, so be thinking about that, how you might work that. So that really takes care of 1 and 2. The other big part of today is now, of course, we're in quarter 4, I guess, officially starting on Monday. What will that look like? Again, under the idea that you would be delivering school in a different way. Not just online, though that would probably be the major component for all kids, for most kids, I should say, but also to think of that in terms of paper and pencil as well. I'll try to say this the best I can. The struggle we are up against is the governor has said, and I don't think it's just a North Dakota issue, that if we're going to deliver education, we have to be prepared to deliver education to all kids. And if we can't do it for everybody, we shouldn't do it. And all kids doesn't just mean kids that come into your classroom that maybe have a specific learning disability. It means kids who need OT services, speech services, PT, all kinds of things. So we have to figure out as a district how we can maintain all those services and deliver education, which makes it tough. On a more simple level, it's, I don't have a device, I don't have connectivity at home, how can I possibly do this? There has to be a way, not just via Google Classroom or whatever online platform you're using, but how else could you get this in somebody's hands? And if it is a paper pencil copy of whatever it is you're doing, how do those kids get it? Because then again, we have to figure out how to distribute these things to kids at the same time, keeping in mind all the recommendations from CDC. Everybody's safe. Rex? There was a question about print shop yesterday, but we can just add that to the question deck that we have at the end. That's a good one. Rex's question, in case you didn't hear it, is there a way that print shop could be opened up so you have access to it at home to be able to submit work? Right, Gretchen? In the meantime, I asked the secretaries, make sure we have enough paper, so if you need to use the copier, we can do that here while we're trying to figure that out. All right, so what you will be doing when you leave here this morning, as part of your brainstorming for quarter 4, is to figure out what are the most important things kids need to have in my curriculum before the end of the school year. You've been asked to do this in many different ways over the years. This just has maybe a new lens on it, looking at where we're at. So we would like for you to meet with members of your department and really try to find out what is my most dominant course. If I teach 3 sections of English 1, that's probably the person or persons I should be working with. to figure out what can we agree upon as the essential stuff that needs to happen in quarter 4. That doesn't mean you can't give input on the other courses that you teach, but I think that's where you start with the time that we're given. In some way, I would imagine it would just be best to put it on a Google document. I want you to identify and list what those essential learnings are, what you've identified, just for clarity's sake. And so at some point, it probably would make sense to share with your peers at Red River High School as well. If you teach a class, let's say sociology, I'm assuming we just have one sociology teacher? Yep. And that's just a singleton, then we would ask for sure that you connect with whomever it is that teaches that class at Red River if it exists there. If you teach graphic arts, that's a little bit different. Does that piece make any sense? Okay, really we're just trying to set the foundation here for how we move forward, the groundwork for how we might move forward. Let's figure out what we need to do. Okay. The other task that you will probably bleed into at some point today would be to look ahead to that scenario of us not having kids in the building for an extended period of time and what that looks like, okay? So next week, what you're being asked to do is look at it. We're just going to be honest. Trying to get something in kids' hands that looks and feels like school, but may not necessarily be what you would consider the most urgent and valuable piece of learning in the world. Does that sound great or what? Okay, good. So the way it was described to us, and it took us a while to wrap our heads around this too, is what could you do to sort of front load or preview the activities that really will be important in quarter 4? That will look different for each of you. Those things at this point cannot be graded. Why can't they be graded? Because we're not in a place where we can say we can deliver education to every single student at this point. We don't have a way to do that. We've not figured that out yet, so we need to do that. Okay? So be thinking about it in those terms. It does not mean that the content that you are thinking about as a previewing or a front-loading piece can't be assessed later after we have our systems in place. It would just be a way to set things up. So if you have somebody reading an independent novel, keep reading the novel, right? There's no grade going into a grade book about these specific days of school related to that activity. Megan. Megan asked, are we telling students, when this was given to us yesterday, we called Catherine over. Catherine, you know the first question is going to be, is this graded, right? She said, yes, I know. I don't know that you necessarily say that, but if somebody asks you, I think the answer is it will be assessed later on in the grading period. So the next thing is, for these assignments, these previewing front-loading assignments, how are they going to be delivered? So in your mind, be thinking, if I'm a Google Classroom user, that's probably easy enough. If I'm not there yet, or the assignment doesn't fit that so well, what would be the paper and pencil option for kids? And then thinking of kids in the same way. They don't have a device and connectivity at home, how would they complete this assignment? So there's one way to train your thinking. If you are an ED and dual credit teacher, really a lot of this looks pretty different for you. You're on a totally different track with a totally different deadline. Sometimes university standards in place. I think that learning just has to continue, and generally that population probably knows that. We've heard that from kids already, that they're still getting assignments and doing them right now, because you've got a test to get ready for if you're an AP kid. We are trying to connect with Lake Region just to figure out what their view of learning should be, if it changes in any way. So we'll share that with you as soon as we have some information. You already have some.
I have a phone call with Andreessen this afternoon, so he sent me a really long email yesterday too that I didn't necessarily get all the way through, but we have a phone call that's going to be happening sometime today, and hopefully that will provide more of the information. I just want to add something to the number 1 on here too. Part of it was the reason for the number 1 is, I know he came out yesterday, Governor Burgum came out yesterday and identified that school
they're going to help. They're not going to be held against you those days. Prior to that information, the reason for the number one is if you have the information for providing education to kids in that way, shape, or form, that those days wouldn't be able to count. So that was also part of the rationale. But going back to it now, I'm going to connect with Andreessen, so I should have a little bit more clarity, hoping for more clarity on dual credit this afternoon.
So moving ahead a little bit, assuming you get today's task done and you're thinking about those previewing front-loading assignments for next week, Q3 ending, that stuff, then really we probably don't have as much time as we'd like to see what school will look like if it's all distance. It's all distance learning. So you should be thinking about that as well. Some things to consider. Until we know every kid has a device and connectivity, we have to be able to offer a paper option for anybody. And again, we'll figure out the system to get that in place, but keep that in your mind while you're thinking, because of course, equity is the goal. Because you have some freedom here, and you started off with the idea of what are the essential pieces of Q4, now how you're delivering it looks different as well. You can start thinking a little bit outside the box and is there an assignment that would cover multiple standards and check off a couple of boxes for me? So really, is there a project-based learning option that does a trick for us distance-wise that would be easier to manage than thinking, I have 20 assignments I need to get through in Q4. So know that that is one way to think about it, and I would encourage you to think of it that way. At the same time, if you're thinking about it through the eyes of a student, they're not going to want 7 projects. That won't make sense. So I think you sort of have to balance that. But the idea is, can you think differently about how somebody is going to learn that essential standards, the priority learnings, and demonstrate it in maybe a more unique way, given our circumstances. So maybe it's just deeper learning about a couple of questions. It's not necessarily a project. I would say they don't write enough, so you can always throw that in there somewhere too. Also, think about what would make sense for them to learn about today. Anybody ask your kids at home what they know about the coronavirus? You may want to just say, so what do you know about this? I got one that said, nothing. Well, what a blissful world you live in. Good for you. Get back to your video games, right? But it might be a time for them to learn something about it. There's so many aspects to life that are affected by this, and depending upon your curriculum area, is there something you can do that would connect to this that would make sense for them to learn at the same time? The other thing I want you to think about is how will you communicate to families, particularly the ones I think that come to the forefront, the disadvantaged kids. How would you be able to communicate how things are going back and forth with them? Thoughts for you? Next week, we don't want to plan too far ahead, but we're thinking that Monday and Tuesday would be days sort of like this, or what this day will look like, where you have a lot of time to figure out a plan and how you might do things. Within that planning, one idea we have is to really assign one special education teacher to each department, just to make sure as you're planning that you're keeping in mind some of those special populations, the IEP kids, the 504 kids, so that I'll use the word lens again, that lens is kind of always there for whatever you're planning. If you are in a performance or movement-based course, just know we think you're unique. And I don't have a lot of great answers for you, but because of your uniqueness, which is nice, right? You don't want to be the same as everybody else anyway. Your thinking outside the box might go even larger as to what it might mean to demonstrate some learning or some knowledge or some performance related to your content area. As we said yesterday, we have all these questions and we think, the people that are on the front lines that are with the kids have way better answers than we do. So I trust that you'll have much deeper and better thinking than I can around that. For those of you in special ed, IEPs will be something for you to be talking about as a group, especially today, how those might work. And of course, are they over the phone? Is it a Google Hangout? What would that mean? It doesn't mean that you can't meet with the family, but of course, social distancing would be part of that. Maybe it's not in the school, maybe it's somewhere else. That all depends upon the situation and what you're dealing with. But communication has to happen for those students on IEPs. There's other services that are coming there as well. I'm needing speech services. What does that look like? So for the special ed folks, you are really creative folks. So hopefully your creativity helps out and you're much better probably than the rest of us who came from content areas at working as a team and relying on others for ideas. All right, so this afternoon, to prepare us for the world that changes and what that might look like, we have some trainings available to you. So, Bridget has offered to help out to get us kind of the foundational knowledge that we need to move forward. So at 1 o'clock, via Zoom, and Bridget, I'm assuming you would just share a Zoom meeting number with people or a link to get into the meeting. We can do live streaming. I keep hearing the sound isn't very good, so I'm not sure. We'll let you decide whether option you want. If we just want to share it with Central News, people will know how to do that, and I can help you with that too. Okay. So the first one is at 1 o'clock, a half-an-hour training, and that includes questions and answers. It may not be that much information giving, but some working through it as well. If Google Classroom is new to you, that's the training for you. You have not used it before. I'm going to say if you're not using Google Classroom, you need to go to that training. That's a requirement because you at least need to have the knowledge of what that might look like so you have the capability to share things that aren't easily shareable. I don't know the other way that you would do it. It's the way that most kids are used to. I have a sophomore, 6 out of the 7 classes use Google Classroom. So if you're brand new to that one, you do need to go to the training just so you understand what we're talking about and then figure out how that might fit in your world. Screencast-O-Matic is from 1:30 to 2 p.m. That's a curriculum recording and sharing option. So that is optional. That's for you if you want to learn more about that. But I would say the people that use it would say it is extremely valuable, a great way to be able to share what you're doing with the kids when you're trying to explain something. Anybody else want to add more about that? Because I'm certainly not an expert there. Mary. Sure. We talked about both the options. Mary's question was Screencast-O-Matic versus Screencastify. It seems like Screencast-O-Matic offers 15 minutes of free content, where Screencastify is only 5. So without this option, it might be better. Okay. Thank you. I do not know if it's an extension. It's an extension, yeah. A Google extension. Yeah. And then the third training at 2 o'clock is really, if you're a Google user, you're thinking, I don't know that I know all of the capabilities of Google Classroom, that training would be for you, maybe more advanced techniques and tips. If you go to the one at 1 o'clock and you're kind of a 1.0 introduction person, you certainly can come back for the advanced one as well. So that is what the afternoon looks like. In terms of things that are offered for PD or assigned to you. The other tasks that we've described, that work just continues in the afternoon for folks as well. Any questions on that learning? Sarah?
So by the end of this Tuesday, you haven't sent anything, right? Are all getting prepped.
Correct. Yeah, this is prep time for us. Yeah. Megan's question was, and kind of a follow-up from Sarah was, when's the first time we would send or share things for kids? Next Wednesday. At this point, we're all planning on coming here Monday and Tuesday. Yes. Say that again. And parents. Parents will be here as well. Matt. Yeah, Matt's question is, can kids come and check out a textbook if they don't have access to it or don't? Yes, just the same way we're handing out paper and pencil assignments you give, we have to figure out a system and announce to kids when you can come and pick up materials that you need. And some of that would require a teacher to say, I know they don't have this material, I need to get this in their hands, and that will help us figure out what that looks like. Does that answer your question, Matt? Okay, Pam Fisher. I'm not saying that can't happen, we just have to figure out how that would work. Pam's question is, will students be allowed into the building to meet with the teacher, possibly do a makeup test? Well, first of all, I would hope you could do it over Google Classroom, but if you can't, I'm not sure what the parameters around that would be. You could meet with someone, I'm not saying you can't, but of course it would be in a certain area. Our goal is to keep the building, once we get it cleaned, so that we don't feel like we have to go back and disinfect one more time. So we have to figure out the spaces for that, they're contained, the custodians know, so they can come back and re-clean. Yep. Sean Allen. Yeah. Sean asked if you could just email a test to him, if you're comfortable with that. Yeah, that's how I envision you using Google Classroom anyway. Yep. Okay, so the survey about end of the third quarter grading is included in the slide deck. That's one of the things that it wasn't attached to the slide. There was a link to a slideshow that I just sent like right before 8 o'clock. Did nobody get that? Oh, there was no link in the email? It should. I can resend that if I did not. There will be a link if you don't have it to this slide deck, which will show you the link to the quarter 3 survey. And then also where you can ask any questions that maybe you didn't have a chance to ask here or that come up later, either way. Lindsay Nelson. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you and I would have to talk to Eric about that. Yeah. Lindsay was asking a question about a CNA test. Other questions for this morning? Sure. Dave's question really is, I'm not sure I can summarize that, but his question really is there a realistic expectation for how we deliver education and the time involved to move things to an online platform, which is oftentimes much more time consuming, yes. We tried to talk about that a little bit yesterday too, and that's why we wanted to start small with just what will you do for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and next week. Without saying what I think this could look like, what I think this could look like is that the following Monday, the 23rd, is that what it would be, 30th? The 30th might look like us being in the building or working and staying a day or two ahead of kids. That you would be creating, managing things, and trying to just stay almost like you're a brand new teacher. But that is why we said, I really think you should examine what is essential, what needs to be learned in quarter 4, and can I combine those things into one project, a couple of assignments, something like that. Because I think we fully acknowledge how are you going to do this? It's a mountain for a lot of people. For other people, they're kind of living that way already. So maybe it isn't as big a stretch, but yeah.
Is the expectation we post something every single day?
No. Pam said, is the expectation you post something every single day? No, it's the expectation is what do you need to learn and how do I share that with kids? What would make sense? I mean, worst case scenario is we do this for the rest of the year, right? So I think I would start small and say, what are some things I'm going to plan for the next couple of weeks? So I'm sort of ready, but I wouldn't get too far ahead of yourself other than to think about what would be covered, what needs to be covered. Start with the end in mind and kind of work backwards. You're just scratching your head, Sarah, how disturbing that information was? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Angie question, Angie Johnson has it. I think your question is, well, what's the expectation for employees? Your question is, what's the expectation for employees at work? Yeah, I do not know what that looks like right now. I would only be speculating, and I don't want to do it on that topic right now. Joe, no. You're wondering if budgets can be flexible enough to be used for online types of things that might have been used for supplies, for example? I would think so. That's up to your department. Yeah. Gretchen asked a long time ago. Go ahead, Gretchen. Okay, so AP has shared information via tweet that they're looking at providing options to support kids at home and the possibility of home testing. Anything else? Okay. So more specifics to come for AP. Bridget. Yep. Okay, Bridget's point is a lot of things that required subscriptions in the past, we're seeing that those organizations or companies are saying we're going to give it free during the coronavirus. Yeah, so be checking for that as you're brainstorming for how you might do things. Yeah. Here you go. Should have given you a mic. Keep going. Do some people call it Newzilla? Thank you. Okay. Hold on. Recommendation number one, just for the YouTube people, because I don't know that I can repeat that, and I don't know if they'll hear you with the mic. So, Mary Drum recommended Newzilla because it does offer the ability to differentiate topics. Lots of them current events on Newzilla. Okay, Mary, you have to stand right here.
Okay. Okay, YouTube star, let's go. Okay, so my recommendation was newsela.com, also sometimes called Newzilla or Newzilla. They have opened up their premium features for the rest of the year, regardless of or not if your school has closed or like regardless about the corona situation. So if you don't have a teacher account, it's really, really helpful for kids. So if you're math, social studies, science, and you could probably use it for other core classes as well, or elective classes, but there's articles on a whole bunch of different things like society and politics and the world and everything. And what it does is it can automatically differentiate the reading levels for students. So there's a drop-down menu. If you assign a kid, okay, I want you guys to read this article, the kid can go online and then say, well, you know, level 1000 lifestyle or text complexity is too hard for me, so I'm going to drop that down, you know, to this number or this number. And what it can do is it can change it from like a high school level all the way down to like a third grade level. So what you could do as a teacher is that you've got this endless supply of articles and authentic connections to real world learning. And you can have the same like assignment questions because it doesn't dumb down the content. All it does is it simplifies the vocabulary. So that would be Newzilla, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Yay.
Any other questions for the larger group here? All right. Again, we'll share these slides with you so you can kind of go back and look at the task list, as well as have access to the questions that you can provide, the question bank for anything you're thinking, and the end of the third quarter survey. You should have all those in your hands. You have lunch on your own from 12 to 1. You can still eat lunch at a Grand Forks restaurant, so maybe you want to do that as long as you're social distancing, I guess. And then back here at 1 for PD or meeting within your groups, whichever one applies to you, given that schedule we have. Bridget, which will deliver some way. Yeah, Bridget has a link of shared documents, really the agenda for the meeting, I would say, and then some links on it as well for them as a resource. Yeah. Okay, so we'll share that one up right after we're done here. A resource sheet, really just about all those topics we talked about and more topics than just those were shared on that resource. Yeah. Bridget, you have to decide how you want to do that. We had said in here to begin with if you want to, and then we'll figure out how to broadcast. If there's a change, we'll let you know. Check the CDC website. Any other questions? Katie. We did say it would be better to figure it out as a department. Yeah. Katie asked a question about the quarter 3 grading survey. We did ask that you complete that as a department. All right, thank you in advance for everything. We'll give you updates as they come. One last thing, we're supposed to have some sort of closing meeting today. We haven't figured out what that looks like. We'll let you know what that might be, so we can kind of share some things there. I do know this, that when you leave today, you should make sure you take laptop chargers, all those things with you so you have access to them, given that we don't know what the future might look like here, so please do that. Again, thanks. Have a great day. Also, we are available for questions. Just call the office, call one of us, or someone when we can come and help answer anything we can.